Hello, everybody. We're very proud to have Raymond Davidson of Stern Pinball come here and be all by himself, unlike some other shows where there's a big team surrounding him. We're just talking to him today to find out more of the exciting and dynamic world of coding for pinball machines. And it is pretty exciting, I think, in some ways. What would you say in your recent work that, like last week, you just did a delivery of code for Metallica Remastered? What do you think is a good feature that you added that you're proud
Yeah,
of?
that was a really cool release. I've been working on that for a while, just kind of cranking away. Any ideas that come in my head, and then making sure they fit with the existing game. Um, I tried to add more incentives for combos in that game, so you're not just always bashing things, but you're also trying to keep the flow. And so there's two new modes that are accessed via combos: the Lux Eterna and the Frantic modes. And we also got that new song, Lux Eterna, which is a really fun song to rock out to, and it actually makes a perfect song to just try to hit combos. So for that mode, I just gave you as much ball saver as you want, but you're on a timer and you want to just keep hitting the combos to refresh them. And Lyman Sheets, he had a lot of modes like that where you hit a shot and it kind of adds, resets the timer back to 15, and it's kind of this thrill of how long can you keep it going. So whenever I needed inspiration, I kind of looked to his other work, and I think the new code kind of fit in there really well. We kind of jumped from 0.96 all the way to 1.0 because I just kept cranking and adding stuff, and then we're like, I think that's it. I think that's all the features. It's 1.0 now. So doesn't mean we're not going to stop adding things or tweaking things or whatnot. But I was really proud of that release.
And so you're flipping into like bug reports and being driven by that, or driven by reports from the field?
Yeah. I mean, if there's any big issues, I want them fixed. I know about them. I love watching streams. I watched Carlos Laserlos stream Metallic Remastered for like 6 hours, and it held up. I was very happy. He found a couple of weird things, like when you beat the game and it loops back around again. But most people aren't gonna find those. But anything I see, I want to fix. So if there's any issues, of course we'll update it. Or if there's something in balance, people are finding like this is worth way too many points or not enough points, that sort of thing.
And would that come in as a report, or would that come in from you watching good players play, and see that they're exploiting in a way?
I mean, I usually, maybe a little bit of both, but usually just from something I see that I don't like, I'll kind of give me the incentive to fix it. But if people are sending in the bug reports and there's something weird happening that I didn't know about, that's, I can't fix it if I don't know about it. So don't assume I know about everything. If you see something, say something, sort of deal.
Yeah, that's an email address that's in the text file that comes with the update.
Yeah. The README, I always try to make sure everything is in the README file, all the changes and whatnot. And yeah, there's an email. I think it's bug.report@sternpinball.com. We see all those emails. So anything you send, we'll look into.
And so can you talk a little more broadly about 1.0 means for the software guys at Stern?
Yeah, I mean 1.0 kind of means all the features in the grand plan you have are now in the game. So for Metallica, I always wanted a Ultra Wizard mode beyond the end of the line. I wanted something that's like, if you do well in all the multi-balls, you do well in the modes, you kind of do a little bit of everything, and there's this thing that's even higher than the end of the line. And so once I got that in, and the other little side modes, that's kind of what I called it 1.0, because that was kind of in the plan, and now that it's in the game, it's reached its full amount. That's usually what 1.0 means, is anything that the designer had envisioned when starting it, it's all there. All the inserts do something. Everything feels like there's a purpose and you're not missing any modes or features.
And did you happen to notice the version number of the original Metallica that you inherited to begin your work?
I don't remember. It was probably like 1.3 or something. So I think back then they raised the version numbers a lot quicker. I think now we just always, anytime we release, we usually just go up 0.1 just to give us room to add things, unless what happened with Metallica Remastered, where it went from 0.96 to 1.0 because there was such a long time and so many things got added.
Well, I noticed that you've done Rush and Led Zeppelin and Foo Fighters, so a lot of music pins. When you have a chance, you saying, "Give me that music theme," or
it's purely been coincidental, but it is funny because I've been known as the music pin guy, and people are like, "Well, I wonder what Raymond's working on next." Ah, Metallica. That makes sense, right? It's a music game.
Well, do you care to tell us what your favorite band is?
I don't know. I mean, I liked all of them, working on all of them. I learned a lot more as I was working on them. Metallica, before the first pin, I didn't really have much of their music or anything, but then when the first pin came out, I started liking the songs on the game and had those songs on my phone and whatnot. Led Zeppelin, obviously I knew them. They were popular. But Rush, I didn't really know much other than a couple radio hits. But after playing that game a lot, I really started respecting all their songs. I think Far Cry is my favorite one on that game, which is one of the newer songs. So it was really cool to just kind of learn all these bands.
Yeah, being somewhat older, I certainly knew Led Zeppelin from back when they existed, and so I was discovering Rush, I think, in the same way you were. I only know a couple of their songs, but you're not specifically looking to do that. It's just
no, it's just always worked out that way. Yeah, they have their teams and the resources, and it's just like a puzzle. Try to figure out who's best where at what time, and that's just how it lined up every time.
Yeah. So this seems like a contrast from the Williams Valley way of doing things, of the software developer pretty much got aligned with a particular layout guy and maybe even a mechanical engineer.
Well, there's some of that at Stern too. Keith Elwin and Rick Nagel, they're always together.
Yeah.
And it seems like Brian and Dwight are paired together. But I was, when I got hired, I was kind of the wingman, so I was kind of by design able to fit anywhere. So once you're a lead, then you kind of, start the project from the beginning with a designer. And that's kind of how those partnerships form and whatnot. So it just depends on your role, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So are you now like a lead for good, or is it you're still flexible, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do wherever I fit best, but I want to be a lead on something soon. I think that's probably likely, I would say.
Well, we're looking forward to more of your work, and of course we can't ask him what the next game is, but I'm sure if he delivered the 1.0 last week that he's got something new already. When you go back to the office,
yeah.
You know what you're working on, but we don't.
Yep.
And how about working with Borg in particular? Since we've
working with Borg. Yeah, I love working with Borg. He's such an easygoing guy, man. He's so fun to be around, and this might sound mean, but it's not. It's endearing. He kind of throws rule ideas at a dartboard, and then like some of them will land, and you're like, yeah, I like that. Okay, yeah, we can do that. And then other ones you just kind of like, Okay, Borg. All right, we'll see. You know, so he's just so enthusiastic, full of ideas and passion, and yeah, easygoing, great to work with.
Yeah.
He was playing Rush, and when we were designing it, and he was like, Raymond, I just hit this like 5-way combo, like, you know, and he's like, hey, you should put a rule on this ramp where you can loop it, and so I love that stuff where you kind of give me like a little idea, and then I can see how I can grow it and make something out of it, and yeah, so we worked really well together, for sure.
Yeah, and he couldn't be here this weekend. You know, we had him all lined up, but whatever it is,
Yeah, duty calls.
whatever he's working on, he's in the crunch mode, and so he wasn't able to come, and he kept stringing us along till even earlier this week. We thought there was maybe a 2% chance he'd come, but so we'll have to talk about him behind his back. That's, but yeah, I certainly enjoyed talking with him, which last year we got him up front in this table and got him to talk freely, which you know, doesn't happen at too many pinball shows. So I think we're getting a few people out there that people should understand better. Later on, if we have time for questions, we'll probably have to use that microphone right there because we want to record everything on YouTube, for YouTube, I should say, that will be audible. So you know, you probably look at some of our old YouTube videos, and there are a few where the question is just, you can hear some mumbling from somewhere. In development, you mentioned this looping 5 times rule, so Borg has this idea, we should do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
How long does that take to actually code that? It sounds like it should be too hard.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what stage we are in development. It's if we already have, you know, the whitewood and I've already gotten the base code and the devices and stuff working, and I'm jamming on rules, then yeah, it'll, you know, just add some logic and see how it works, and then, you know, build a version of it and show it to Borg and have him try it out. It's pretty fast to iterate, I'd say, once you're up and running. The beginning is a little slower because you got to kind of build out the basics of the game and stuff.
Yeah, I'm guessing that in the early stages, you may not have as many switches or optos as you need to know all the ball paths and things like that.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple revisions of the whitewood. So, you know, there's like whitewood 0, 1, 2, and the designer kind of iterates as them. So as I'm developing, you know, you'll have, like you said, you'll have switches, or you won't have switches, and then once you get a new whitewood, now you'll have more switches and more lights, and so you're always kind of updating it as the designer's moving along as well. And then once they call it development validation, that's kind of, all right, pencils down on the drawing, and that's when you know, okay, I know this is what we have, and then it's just go time, just jam on code until it gets put in a box.
Okay, so that pencils down is not just like all the bent metal and posts and stuff. That also includes switch positions and what you have to work with as inputs to.
Yeah, I mean, the designer has freedom to do whatever they want up until, you know, the cutoff when we need to start ordering things. So yeah, sometimes you'll get extra switches, sometimes you'll get extra lights. Just all depends on the game and the designer. But it's fun, and also the earlier you join a project, the more, you know, you can influence that. You can work with the designer and be like, hey, I was thinking of this rule, but I don't have this light. Do you think you can add one? So like on Metallica, Borg, he had a couple of inserts, like he had an extra rectangle insert over on the fuel lane and the insert between the flippers, and of course all those new hardwired inserts. And I was like, hey, Borg, can we have this insert on the left say 2x scoring? Because the original Metallica, you wouldn't really know if you were in 2x scoring. I think he originally intended that light to be like a fuel jackpot. And I'm like, well, we have RGB arrows now. We'll just use the RGB for the fuel mode. It'll be orange or whatnot. I think it's more important to have the 2x. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So he updates his drawing, puts 2x, and so
What an easygoing guy.
Yeah.
Great guy to work with.
yeah, exactly. So even software developers get input on that as well, and trying to just come out with whatever works best with your rule framework, and yeah, it kind of works hand in hand.
Is there anything on Metallica Remastered that was a particular challenge that it took you days or weeks to get it right?
I think the just the presentation of the display effects, because it was a little different than other games. It was a SAM game, so all that display effect system was kind of using an older version than our newer games, and so I kind of had a hybrid, kind of, because you want the display effects to show up when you hit the shots, but you also want some priority system so that you're seeing the most important thing, but you also don't want to just sit there and wait for like 50 animations to play. So I kind of had to juggle all that and tried to stay true to what the original one did, and that was a big challenge, but I think it got there. So it should mostly play like the original game, where if you're hitting a combo, it'll show combo. If you hit Sparky, it'll show Sparky. It's kind of like whatever the last thing you did kind of wins. But that was one of the bigger challenges, is just getting all those new animations, and also all the text. There was so much text displayed, like mode instructions, jackpot values, positioning, all that, making it readable. Just all that display stuff always takes the longest.
Well, since it's a music pin, how about working with a band? Have any experiences there? They wanted you to do something, or you wanted to do something that they didn't want, or any?
I didn't really work with the band directly. They gave us a ton of songs, which was sweet. We got all the original ones, and then they wanted, I think, some of the newer stuff, so the 72 seasons. So that was kind of a challenge to figure out how to add that to the game. I think Borg did it really well with just adding a fourth insert to the tree of inserts for the hardwired, and then he also came up with a lot of the 72 seasons of the album cover that has all the little trinkets on it, and so then I had to turn that into a mode, but the band was really good with call-outs as well. We just gave them a big list of things to say, and they just rattled them off. There was one funny incident where we got back an audio that was someone recorded a countdown from 10 to 1. It's like, no, you're supposed to do like 10, 9, 8, 7. Like, it's like best call out ever.
How about the other bands? Any stories of working with the other bands?
I don't really have.
Not necessarily Led Zeppelin, maybe, but.
I wasn't really involved because I was, a wingman, so that was more the lead developer and game designer that would have had to interact with that. I was mostly just already hitting the ground running, just implementing rules and whatnot, and using what we had from the audio package already.
Okay. Well, we might return to the present in a moment, but it'd be good to know a little bit about how well prepared you were to take on this job. What did you have earlier in your software career that was directly applicable, and what did you have to learn new coming to Stern?
Yeah, so I got my computer science degree at the University of Washington, and those courses were very heavy in C++. So a lot of assignments was all C++, and at Stern we use C++. But my job after college, I didn't use that much C++, but I was working at a startup in the Seattle area, and I was kind of what they called a full stack dev, where because it's a startup, you kind of do all the layers a little bit. Like sometimes you work on the website, you work on the database, you work on the actual like phone app client, you work on the other different layers. So that really helped because I was able to learn things quickly and kind of adapt. Different languages weren't a problem. And so when they hired me for Stern, they're like, how much C++ experience do you have? And I'm like, well, I did a lot of it in school. I haven't used it recently. So I was a little rusty at first, but then it kind of came back to me, and I just remembered, in school. And it was pretty easy to get back in the groove of things.
Any accomplishments from those other jobs that were like, would we know you from any of your prior work? Did you see anything out in the world that?
The only real connection I can think of is one of the startups. It was an app that would help small businesses post ads like to their social networks. So they would make quick little ads, and like bars and arcades I've seen use the app. So that was kind of cool seeing like pinball places. It's like, hey, I did the code for that one little menu option as you're scrolling down. Like I added that little feature.
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned the layered architecture, maybe we could give some more credit to Lyman Sheets, because I remember interviewing him when he had been at Stern Pinball about 9 months or so, and he had done nothing that the general public could see, or people in RGP, it was that long ago, would say, well, what's Lyman doing? And the point of the interview with the Pin Game Journal, we were going to say, well, here's what he's doing. He's working on the bottom layer. And you must be making use of that.
Oh, every day. Yeah, it's very useful. Yeah, he basically wrote all of the system code that handles all the basic stuff that all the games use, so I don't have to think about it. Like, at the end of the ball, you go to the next ball. Oh, have 3 balls happened? All the adjustment systems, just everything that all the games use is just all in these little system calls. So you just access it and use it. And if they're very customizable too. So he had a system where if you don't do anything, the system will do its version of it. But if you want to intervene or do something a little bit different, there's kind of these like hooks that you can kind of latch onto and alter things. So when you come up with a game rule and you're like, well, this is different than what we normally do, most of the time you can still do it, even though it's different than what normally happens. And worst case scenario, you just ask the system team to add a new something, or rather to help you get what you want. But yeah, it's been great working on all that, working with that excellent foundation that Lyman wrote all those years ago.
Yeah, that's one thing that I remember particularly from that interview was Stern's problem, and the reason they justified hiring him was their system was too inflexible, and there was a allocation for sound, and there was an allocation for dots, and you couldn't shift your resources around.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's going from White Star to SAM, because White Star, I think there's even like display ROMs and game ROMs, and it's all written in assembly. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to work in that era, because now we're so spoiled for sure, and it helps us iterate a lot faster.
Yeah, I imagine that your day-to-day is more at a level of game-specific point values and what display to trigger at what time, or that display overlaying that you mentioned.
Yeah, just all the game-specific logic. You just use the system as a tool, basically. And it helps you just get things going. You want a light to turn on, you tell it to turn on. You don't have to worry about how it turns it on. You just tell it which light and turns it on. and so it's very handy.
Mm-hmm. And uh, and sound is flexible enough.
Yeah, sound. You got all these different sound calls. You can loop things. You can have it pick from a random call out. You can you can even have it pick from a random call out and have it tell you which one it picked, so that in the future, if you don't want that one, or each of the sounds have like a history that they keep track of, so that you can tell it, all right, pick something from this list, but don't ever pick something until you've at least explored 5 options. Like, there's so much, and it's so nice because then you just focus on, okay, here are the sound callouts I want. I want them in these places, and even that is a big task because you got like 1,000 lines you got to spread out throughout the game. You don't want to be thinking about all that logic, and so just having the system code already there is super helpful.
Yeah, I kind of wish we could put some code up on the screen, but
Yeah,
that's for an advanced seminar in the future. Anything different about the non-music pin you did, Avengers Infinity Quest? Anything?
Yeah, that was kind of when I started. That was my first project. I was wingman with Rick Nagel on Avengers. Basically, I would try to just implement the rules as Keith wrote in this big document. And I'd work with Keith, and I'd be like, hey, Keith, is this what you wanted? He's like, that's not quite what I wanted. Or, yeah, thumbs up. And then, like, sometimes I'd put stuff in exactly as he said, and he'd be playing it, and he'd be like, yeah, this isn't that fun. What if we did this? And I'd be like, yeah, that seems like a good idea. So even then, when I first started, I was kind of bouncing ideas off each other. And then I also got to do kind of my own little things. I did like all the gem modes and the that computer grid on the left, a lot of that. Although, a lot of that Keith designed, but I had to implement. So there was a lot of kind of just implementing what was designed, while also doing some of my own interpretations or additions. So that was a fun project to get started with. And Rick was super helpful anytime I had a question. So I think that's the same path Elizabeth Gieske took. She started with, I think, Jaws with Rick as well. So, yeah, that was a good way to get my feet wet for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like you felt like you were part of the team right away and got to be creative. Do you have any other thoughts about what is a creative software developer? Because I think you're explaining it pretty well already.
Yeah, basically just always open for feedback, and
you are trying to do capital F, capital U, capital N, so that probably helps a lot.
Yeah, you want it to be fun. A lot of times you'll come up with an idea that you think is fun, you'll put it in, and then it's just not fun, and you're like, what happened? It sounded so good.
Can you give an example?
I mean, a lot of times what ends up happening is I'll come up with an idea of like, you hit, these are your build shots, this is your collect shots, these other shots build how much this thing is building, and then you play it and you're just like, I can't really tell that it's happening very well, or you see people play it and they don't really know what's happening, or what often happens is, oh, this is way too many shots. So like on Foo Fighters, actually this is kind of a good example. So right now on Foo Fighters, the first mode you play, it sort of is less shots to beat. Then the next mode is more, and then more and more. And so where the 6th mode is, that was originally how hard all the modes were going to be, which was like 14 shots, let's say. And my idea was, let's have the modes hard to incentivize you to build up the van to power you up so that you have spots shotted, you're getting more progress from the thing, and you want to add time. But the problem is having someone just start their first mode and have to hit 14 shots was a lot, and it wasn't as fun as it sounded when you didn't get the boost.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of a project there. Do all this stuff.
And so it was really hard to come up with a solution because I didn't just want to cut the shots in half and be like, because I really wanted that van mod section to mean something. And so, you know, I got the feedback from Jack and Tanya of like, we got to do something. This is way too many shots. And I'm like, okay, what about if your first time you get 6 shots spotted for you, and then the next time you get 5 shots and 4? So we kind of ease people into the mode so they, you know, get a little bit harder. And it worked really well. And so that's what we did. So that was a really good solution, taken after feedback after something you thought was good and then ended up not being good, but then we made it good.
Mm-hmm. And that's all pre 1.0, pre-shipping.
Yeah, I think that was in, I think, before the public played it, because it was right around TPF that year, the crazy TPF. We were scrambling, you know, like, what do we do? What do we do? Okay, we'll do this. And so we got that in right before the TPF show, so everyone got to experience it.
Been in a few crunches yourself, huh?
Yeah. It sometimes makes you you get the best idea quicker, or like it inspires you somehow. You know, you're motivated.
Yeah, or your urge to converge on a solution is heightened.
Yep. But other things, it's nice to have more time to, like, if you have an idea that you think has promise, but you know it's going to take some time to kind of get there, then you don't want to rush those ones. You want to make sure you're iterating and kind of tweaking, get the right values of things so they're fun.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, like the Lux Eterna mode, where you start with like 60 seconds and then you hit some combos, and now you get more time and you hit some combos. So there was like 3 parameters I had to tweak, where it's like, all right, how much time should you start with? How much time should you get when you advance a level? How many points should they be worth? And what should you have to do to advance levels? And so I started off with one thing, and then I had some people test it, and it just seemed like, okay, that looked a little too hard, or like, oh, that didn't seem like it was worth many points. Okay, let me try raising it. Okay, that went on forever, or oh, that ended way too quick. Like, you just kind of get a feel for it, you know, just by playing it.
Okay, so in that regard, it's actually tying back to what we had Jim Patla talk about a few years ago. When he started in the 60s, that was part of his job, is just play it over and over and measure how much playing time you get, but not just for the game as a whole, but individual steps and things you can do. How often do you hit them? And just it's partly statistical, but you don't want to just try to put counters on everything.
Right.
Look at the numbers. You want to get a feel.
Yeah, there is kind of an art and a science, I would say, for sure.
Well, we have Steve Ritchie coming up. Any Led Zeppelin development stories of note?
I didn't really work with Steve directly. I was the wingman, but he would also kind of have his own ideas of, I want this lane changeable on the target bank. We're like, okay, Steve. Sure. You know, he designed a game with a lot of, you know, fast-moving shots. So we had the Icarus multiplier, where you're having combos build your multiplier, and you know, as long as Steve kind of got the little things that he asked for, we kind of had free reign to kind of do whatever with the rules. So I went to town with all the multi-ball rules, came up with cool, you know, jackpot progressions and things. So that was a pretty fun project. I got to you know, really add my own rules and things that I had concocted and see how they play, and just get them all in the game. And Steve was pretty easygoing, and you know, as long as his game was rocking out and shooting things, and you know, he's like, yeah. But
well, it seems like a good time to bring up a question which I've anticipated some of you may have, and that is, you are one of the top players in the world, and what are you doing to have like good ethical handling of all your deep knowledge of the games you did the code for?
Yeah, it does feel weird sometimes. You know, I don't know, maybe I subconsciously won't pick my own games in tournaments if I can avoid it, which I shouldn't. I should be able to pick whatever games, but maybe subconsciously sometimes I won't. You know, if there's an option between a game I worked on and another game I like, you know, I might pick that game. But my stance has always been I will tell you anything if you just ask me. So just like if you want to know exactly how something works, I will tell you exactly how something works. So I want that information out there, and I also all my games I always make a rule sheet. There's a PDF online. And also, Tilt Forums is a good resource. I will answer questions or update things. Yeah, I just want everyone to be on the same, you know, playing field. So I don't feel bad, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you don't get a lot of resentment in the online
Right. But
forums or
honestly, I
something
mean,
like that.
even if you know the rules, I mean, anyone who has played in tournaments can attest. Just knowing the rules of a game, you know, you have your favorite game at home, you know it inside and out. You go to a tournament, it's going to play totally different. And so it might help a little bit, but at the end of the day, you got to play on the table that's in front of the machine that's in front of you.
Do you have all your own games at home?
Yeah, I have. I just have. Right now, I think I have a James Bond and a Jaws Premium. But I've owned Godzilla and other things. Just Stern games that are, I have a Doodle Bug. It's a fun game. I got to get it working again though. I'm bad at fixing things.
Well, on your modern Sterns that you have at home, do you have extra hard rules, or what do you do?
No,
talking about your tournament
it's
prep
funny.
now.
A lot of tournament players will set their games up super hard and brutal to practice, but I got into pinball because I liked the journey and the rules and navigating things and, you know, where's my next extra ball? You know, what's my next step? And so I leave my games completely factory and just play it as the game, you know, kind of as was intended. And then when I go to tournaments, I have to adjust a little bit. You know, some of the strategies you kind of condense a little bit because it's not going to be relevant. You're not going to play that long to get to that mode. So you just got to focus on what is closest to the flipper. But that mentality also kind of helps me design code rules too, so that, you know, I'm playing a tournament on a game where I'm only seeing the first this amount. Well, a lot of people who play pinball, they're only also seeing the first this amount. So that kind of actually helps that perspective a little bit.
Yeah. What was your first game at home as a kid?
It was a Gottlieb 1976 Pioneer. It's the two-player version of Spirit of 76. It was at my grandparents' house. I don't know, I was like 4 or 5 years old, just barely reaching the flipper buttons, and my dad would teach me, you know, this is pinball. You hit these down, you get double bonus. You hit these, you get the extra ball. And I don't know, I fell in love with it right away.
Mm-hmm. When did you feel like you were a good player?
I don't know. I always, when I learned you could get replays, I really started seeking out rules online and kind of motivated me for finding pinball machines in restaurants. You know, can we go to this restaurant? They have a pinball machine. I want to see how long I can play it on my dollar or whatever. And so my first tournament was in 2008 at the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show, and it's called the Northwest Pinball Championships, which still runs to this day. And they asked, do you want to be in the novice division or the open division? I'm like, well, what's the difference? And they're like, well, the open division, you can earn world ranking points. And I was like, ooh, I want to be worldly ranked. So I signed up, and it was a format where you know, as many tries as you want, try to get the high score. And I did well enough that I qualified, and that kind of like immediately hooked me. And so then the next year I came back, and it was a much bigger tournament. People had heard about it. People were flying in. And I did not do very well. I didn't qualify. It was kind of a brutal format, too. You had to play all 7 games. You couldn't, like nowadays, you get to pick. Like, I want to pick these 5 out of 20. It was 7 games. You had to play all 7, and they all had to be good. And there was like 1 or 2 games. I think it was Future Spa that did me in because I had no idea what a tap pass was. I didn't realize like how big bonus was. I didn't, and so because I couldn't get a score on that game, I didn't qualify. But it kind of motivated me to kind of start going to even more tournaments. So then the year after that, I got top 4, and I got second to Keith Elwin in a finals. Many of first finals getting second to Keith Elwin. But that was really exciting when I had that really good finish. And I kind of used that money to fund my trip to Papa, which I had always dreamed of going to. And I got my butt kicked at Papa my first time. And I spent a lot of money too, so it wasn't a lack of trying. I wasn't ready yet. But even that just motivated me to keep playing. And so I joined local scene things, Seattle Pinball League. Started traveling to the closer shows in like San Jose. There was California Extreme that was easy to get to. I was living in Seattle. And so then after that, I started going to every Papa, started qualifying for those, started going to all the world events, qualified. My first world event was in Seattle, and that was a heartbreaker because I missed qualifying by like, it was a 12-way tie at like 94 points, which is unheard of because normally you need like 98 points. And they were like, we can't believe this, but you're still alive technically. And of course, I got second in the tiebreaker. I almost qualified my first Worlds. It was so close. But I just kept at it. And then I eventually won the Worlds in, I think, 2015 in Denmark. And that was really exciting because that was the first time I'd ever flown outside of the U.S. And so that's part of what I really like about tournaments is it gives you an excuse to travel places. And if you break even or win anything back, it's like, well, I got this trip out of it too. So
yeah. Well, I hope you're enjoying New England. I know you've been here a few times.
Yeah.
Is anybody just dying to ask a question here? Because I've got a few more, but all right, just yell it out. I'll repeat it. Okay. So the question sounds like, is a simulation in some way going to help? It seems to me you've got to have realistic timing of the ball just going across open space and stuff like that, and maybe spin on the ball. But is there any hope that simulation would give you any good measurements of play?
Yeah, for like testing, I guess the question was kind of like, you add a new rule and now your state machine has changed and you want to make sure you catch all the different possibilities because you might go this one path and now things are set up one way, or you go this other path and set up this other way. So a lot of bugs will happen when something you didn't expect, oh, this person did this, then this, and then this. And I never found that in my testing.
The ball hopped over the divider and it's on this side and it hit this switch.
Yeah, that can happen too, So you got to be prepared for everything. And honestly, it's just a lot of with the glass off. You just have to go and try everything yourself and try to write your code in a way that things are kind of independent of the order. Like there's a lot of times for rules and things, it'll be written in a way that's like can I advance this rule? Well, if you have any multi-ball running or any whatever running, no, you can't. And the way you catch those bugs of like, oh, I accidentally stacked this thing with this other thing that I didn't think you could stack because they did it in this order. I know some people like Tanyo, when he's developing a game, he'll have a spreadsheet of like the stacking spreadsheet. And basically as you're plugging in the rules in the code that says, okay, little Deadpool can only be started if you're not in a battle, not in a whatever. And you'll add that to the spreadsheet and just kind of keep track. And that way you can at least see in kind of a visual representation of, well, what if someone has this but not this? Should this be possible? And you can kind of get ahead of answering that question. But as far as using, I think you mentioned like AI or simulations. I mean, the best simulation is just having Nick Wayna bang on your game for like 2 hours. He's really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's second generation, big pinball family. Other questions from? Yeah. Okay. Ah. Okay, so I think the general question is Insider Connected. We know you're trying to develop specialized achievements and stuff, but what about the data that comes in from Insider Connected? Is there anything that is influencing your design thinking?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, all those achievements, we can see how often people are getting achievements. So you'll see the insider quests when they're arranged from easy to hard. The percentages are usually like, 50% of people who play a game get this achievement, so that's an easy achievement. Oh, only 2% of people are getting this one, so this is a harder achievement. 0% of people got this one. Maybe we should make it a little easier. So there's kind of that level. And also, I can get kind of like scores of like, oh, this mode total is being completed with this average score. Maybe I want to increase the score or lower the score. Like on Metallica, I found out people were getting way too many points from the spinners. They were getting just hundreds of millions. And so I was able to kind of fix that for 1.0. But it's, I don't know how much I can talk about. And also I don't really know because it's kind of the insider team. But as a general rule of thumb, anywhere you see like achievements, that kind of helps us inform how often people are getting those achievements.
Dennis, do you see AI coming into existence with coding or pinball machines?
Well, I think we need to make a little stipulation on the AI question that Larry DeMar said that he used AI in the implementation of thing flips in the Addams family, but I think what it ultimately compiled to was just deterministic code, not really.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know.
So
I don't personally use any. I mean, I don't really need the AI right now, I guess. But I'm not. Things are always moving. So
yeah,
I mean,
my
there might be an
understanding
application.
of what Larry was saying is that AI was a front-end thing that made it easier for him to write in some way, but it didn't really become the machine having AI embedded in it.
Yeah, that's probably
something. What? Say what? John Wick? Is that?
Well, the John Wick AI was just it's getting it will block certain shots based on what mode shots are lit. It's just kind of it's like you said, deterministic, but
Yeah.
kind of it's context sensitive, I guess. I don't know.
So that sounds a lot like the spreadsheet thing, Tanya's spreadsheet.
Right,
idea.
but it feels like it's maybe even more adaptive just because there can be more states and things and different all the enemies want to go to this shot because it's lit for this mode, or oh, he's doing this, let's add more enemies, that sort of thing. I'm not sure exactly, but I only worked on that game a little bit.
This is not really a question. It's more of a, wouldn't this be could submit bugs that we find through Insider Connected somehow.
So is it an alternative to email? How about submitting bugs by Insider Connected?
That's a good idea. I'll suggest that. Just like if you're in your app, like submit a bug or something, or it's a great idea.
Well, like we have here at Pintastic New England, where you scan that QR code on the game card and submit a repair ticket is right there.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Over here, Steve.
My question as far as game development, it concerns the balance between game complexity and game comprehension. By that I mean, like, the amount of things you put in a game versus the amount you can properly convey to the player,
Yeah. So
so that they understand what's going on.
and
I'm not going to read a Bible full of stuff like football without medicine. I'm interested in to know any kind of debate that the developer team has had that you could say was maybe
okay.
that had that goal of maintaining that balance so that normal people can play the game and not just necessarily.
So Steve Bowden, a top player and game rules developer in his own right, asks from the audience, what internal debates do you have, or what can you say about the age-old question of the player comprehending what they need to do with the game, and maybe even a kind of top-down way? Well, the big picture is you do this, and then you have to break it down from there.
Yeah, it's kind of an age-old. I think Bowden referred to it as comprehensive versus complexity. Of something can be comprehensive, but not necessarily complex, which is kind of what you're aiming for, where it's not overwhelming, but there's a lot there. You know, there's substance. Because if you go too far in the other direction, people get bored because they realize, yes, it's easy to understand, but that's all it is. That's all there is to do. So you really have to start kind of small and then branch out in a way that people can discover on their own if they want, but it might not be necessary. I can't think of any.
Well, let's take one particular aspect of that. What's your personal opinion about the screen being used to say, here's a player tip that is context to specific to where you are now? You could go here, you get more points here and here, or even down to the level of the compass in JJP's Pirates that says, there.
Yeah, I mean, I like the screen as a way of putting things so that they exist, so that someone who wants to dissect a game can see clearly, like, oh, this shot's worth more than this other shot. That's cool. Like, let me go for this one. Or maybe when you start a mode, it'll have some instructions while the ball's held, and you can feel free to skip it and ignore it, or you can actually read it. But I think the playfield has to be the main source of, if I see a flashing shot and I hit it, I expect good things to happen. And that can be kind of hard. I've struggled with that, where if I want to have a rule where there's a build and collect, but also there's a way to beat the mode, I find a lot of times people just want to know how to beat the mode, and they get confused very quickly if they're hitting things and they don't feel like anything's happening.
Well, and we saw that yesterday with Dick Hamill's seminar about what he did to Black Knight, where, no screen, not even dots to give you any instructions. There are points in the game with his rules where, do I battle this thing now, or do I save it for the bigger payoff later, which is kind of, how good a player am I? Will I be able to last long enough to get the big payoff by not doing the battle now, which is a pretty good payoff? So I think there's more that can be done to communicate, but I'm not sure how you're going to do it. If you think you're good enough, then you should not do this right now, even though it says right now, this will get you the most points right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's That's one way that is helpful, is where you kind of give something that's accessible and you can beat it or you can start it, but for the people that care, maybe you dangle the carrot of like, you give that or option of like, or continue. Like a lot, like in Godzilla, there's all those tier 2 monster battles where you can collect or continue. And I think that's the key to really making complexity or comprehensive rules that aren't necessarily complex, is you have to be just super obvious about what is happening, where you hit a shot, the ball's held, you can either continue or you can beat the mode. Like if you want to just move on to the next thing, you hit done and I'm done, rather than if the other way they could have done it, right, is they could have had, oh, you have to hit 5 total shots of red and that completes the mode, but you can hit as many blue shots as you want. And that would be confusing because you're hitting blue shots, but you're not beating the mode, So that's the kind of differentiation that really helps, is just presentation, choreography, and then lights that mean shoot me, because that's what people, and sound effects too. You really, there's a lot of times you hear a call out and it says like shoot the left ramp, and maybe the left ramp's like blinking a little bit, but like maybe there's like a lot of other stuff blinking too. If you hear shoot the left ramp, there's something going on, and that'll kind of just wake you up and be like, I have this hurry up running. Like on Metallica, when things are going crazy, you might not notice the captive ball hurry up has started, but there's like a call out that's like smash that ball, that sort of thing.
So still an area for improvement, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things for sure.
Yeah. You think there's going to be another generation of even deeper rules, or have we kind of maxed out?
I think
You're selling 75% to the home now, so
yeah,
if they're happy with
you
what
just
they
got to
got
do it the
now.
right way, right? I don't think there's a limit. If there is a limit, I'd say it's like an asymptote, right, where you can always make it a little bit more, but maybe there is some limit, but you don't really know what it is. That's kind of how I think of it.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of limits, we'll take a last call for questions. Seeing none, I want to thank you very much for coming up here and doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hope you haven't slipped too far down the Silver Ball Rumble rankings while you're doing this.
Hi, Steve says I'm fine. All right.
Okay. Well, head back out there. Thanks for coming.